20 seconds. 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Okay. Rep your city. Let me see the mic. Rep your city. Give me the mic. Rep your city. I got you. Rep your city. I'm gonna tell you about mine. Rep your city.
It's time for us to go live, so rep your city. I really would appreciate if y'all roll with me. Feeling this music cause it makes me wanna step. And if you don't want it to, then you lying to yourself. Cause every time we party, we gon' have fun. I don't know about you, but I'ma rep where I'm from.
Rep your city. Okay. Rep your city. Let me see the mic. Rep your city. Give me the mic. Rep your city.
Welcome to the RYC Live show this evening. I am Artistic, your host for tonight, and this is Rep Your City RYC Live Fresh Fridays. And we're back once again. We do this each and every Friday. We do apologize for the last 2 weeks. We were going through a few changes and did not have a show for the past 2 Fridays. But we're back here, July 15th, Fresh Fridays, and we'll continue to bring you the fresh stuff as we normally get it. So tonight, as usual, we have a special guest with us tonight. And before we introduce our guests on this show for tonight, I'd like to just make a few announcements. First off, this is Chicago Hip Hop Heritage Month here in Chicago. And it's underway. Today is July 15th, so we're pretty much already halfway through the month. So for those that have not gotten a chance to see the exhibit, we encourage you to come down to check it out. Chicago Hip Hop Heritage Museum, located at 4505 South Indiana in the Bronzeville community. You can hit up myself or my brother Kingdom Rock to schedule an appointment, but weekends are best. To come down and check out the new exhibit. We're encouraging everyone to get down and check it out before the month is out, because some of the pieces that we have on hand may not be there after the end of this month. So some of the pieces that were donated to us were donated on a temporary basis just for the month of July, since it's Hip Hop Heritage Month. So come on down, check it out, check out your history. If you have any artifacts you'd like to donate, you can come on down and donate, bring those items and donate them to the Chicago Hip Hop Heritage Museum. One love. Also, if you have not done so already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, RYC Live on YouTube. You can follow us on Facebook, Rep Your City or RYC Live. Or you can send us an email if you'd like to be a guest on a future show. And the email address is ryclive@yahoo.com. That's ryclive@yahoo.com. And one of us from the team will be more than happy to get back to you to schedule you on a future show. So tonight, without further delay, we have my man, DJ Fred Ones, my brother from New York. My brother is on the set tonight with us, and I'm finna bring him from the backstage area to the main set right now. And here he is, my brother, DJ Fred Ones. There he is. How you doing, my brother? Welcome to the RYC Live show.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
Word, it's been a long time in coming.
Yeah, it's been a minute. I haven't seen you. And I guess I'm going to say almost 30 years.
Yeah, that was like, I think the last time we seen each other was between 94 and 95 or something like that.
Yeah, I left Chicago. I left Chicago in 95.
Okay, you left in 95. See, so there you have it. Yeah. That's crazy, man.
Good Good seeing
Yeah,
you.
that's crazy. Well, yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know, hey man, it's a blessing to still be alive. You know?
That's the
So
truth.
first off, I wanna say thanks to all our viewers tuning in already to check out my brother DJ Fred Ones. And so you know, I know they may have some questions. So if you have any questions for Fred, you can type them in the comment area and we'll address them as we can if as time permits. You know, and you know, engage with us. And also too,
Yeah.
please share this broadcast, share it to your friends, share it to your family, you know what I'm saying, share it to your crewmates, you know, because we're gonna chop it up on some history from both New York and Chicago tonight. So without further delay, man, what I like to do on this show, you know, this is Fresh Fridays, and we like to talk about the history. And what I usually like to do is go all the way back to the beginning. So for
Okay.
you, obviously, you're from New York, so you have history on both sides of Chicago and New York. So talk about when you first started in New York in this, and what element did you start with first? Did you start as a DJ, or was you a b-boy, or what was it first for you?
Um. It was DJing. I think was the first thing, and I was around 10.
Okay.
Um.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm from New York. I'm first generation Dominican.
Okay.
But my family, we moved around though. So I was up in New York until about 80. In 80, we moved. My father and my mom split. My dad moved back in 86. And then I was between the two of them, right? And so through all that, that's the early stages of hip hop, of you seeing of like, 80s graffiti in New York, the trains being done. Um, and in fact, the thing about leaving New York is you leave New York and then nowhere else has trains. No one else has like the density of what New York was. So everything else is
Right.
just, for a kid, trains and art, it's very impressionable. Then when you go to any
Yes.
place, and in those early days, nothing. And so you're like, yeah,
Yeah.
So every time I'd go back to New York, I'd absorb my culture, my cousins. Shout out to my cousin Ed Nez. I do this on every interview. Ed Nez is the one who was like, yo, here's the hand style. Yo, this is the scratching. This is what cats are doing. So when I go visit Ed Nez in the Bronx, he's the one to put me on. And then I kept taking the show on the road. Wherever my family was, I'd be there with hip hop. And pre-internet, so we would take Red Alert tapes to places like St. Louis to cats who didn't have access to that stuff. I ended up going to high school in Virginia. I ran into a graffiti writer in Virginia who was connected to some graffiti writers in New York. And me and him befriended each other. And right around that same time, I graduated college. So I say all that, I graduated high school and started to go to college. I say all that to say that I was just running around and hip hop was just my identity. It was just something I had in my black books. I was a kid still, more or less. And I got to Chicago when I was 18, and I got to Chicago. I went to Art Institute. I went because I visited Chicago, and it was the first city first city I'd been to that was close to New York. It was closest to New York than any other city in the country.
Okay.
It's an old city. It's an old city. You got the elevated train. There was the graffiti. I was sold. I said, I'm going here. I went to Art Institute, and so that was my journey here to Chicago. And so before then, in terms of hip hop, it was just I was probably like you, someone who did it. You probably did it more than me in the '80s out in the streets, because where I was at, there weren't places to do it at, really. So I was just doing it in black books. I was DJing. I was DJing heavily, since 12, DJing a lot. And I was doing the small high school parties, at 13, shit like that. But I was involved in the culture, man. So Chicago was really my come up. Chicago was like, we started the Hash Crew, THC, in those early stages. And then that crew was started by a bunch of non-Chicagoans. It was me and other kids from Art Institute. That's what the original core of the crew. And and I think I brought I basically taught those guys a New York style, right? That's all that I knew was a New York style. And so that's, I guess, how we kind of came out the gate. And it was out of nowhere. I mean, as you know, there was people didn't really know us, so it didn't make sense. I think to the graffiti community, and people wanted to find out, and they got to find out. You know. Also, I think the DJing helped a lot. The DJing helped. I don't know, broaden the scope of who we were as a group, and so, you know, I got into the Chicago scene like that. Shout out to Dero. Dero was the first one to put me on. Dero put me on to open mic at Lizard Lounge. He saw me DJing at a loft party. I forget how I met Dero, but he was like, "Yo, would you do this open mic?" And that was my first time doing that type of stuff. I already knew somehow I knew what to do, but I had never done it, and those were my first days. So that was kind of like how I started sneaking in to that whole scene.
Okay, now let's just step back just a little bit. Let's go back to New York. So what I want to know, if you can, and I know it's been a long time, but if you can remember some type of time frame in terms of year. So when you got involved as a DJ or writing, do you recall what year that was when you first started?
It's like 80.
Okay.
80.
Okay.
You know, 80. 82. Between 80 and 82, where it was like, you know, again, it's, you know, when you're from New York, that's what it is. It's all over. So everyone's writing. Everyone wants to do it as a kid. So you mimic what you saw. But I know definitely around 82, right before Sucker MCs, right? Right before Sucker MCs.
Okay.
Because I remember when I heard Sucker MCs in 83, and I was already in, but I was like, oh, now it's this. Oh, it's gonna be different now. You know, it's different now.
So now tell us a little bit about the experience of seeing the trains, because between 80 and 82, I mean, you guys had whole cars running. You already had a good 10 years.
New York was an incredibly expressive place. You know, the trains, obviously, the huge thing, and you know, the New York has a grit and a grime to it. So it has a smell. It's very overbearing. New York sits on your shoulder. You know what I'm saying? So as a kid, when I was coming up on trains and insides and stuff like that, not only was it normal, which is weird, right? Because it was always there. It was never not there.
Right.
It was super interesting, right? Hand style stuff was super interesting. So like, and as a kid, you know, I wasn't like a conservative, you know, middle-aged working class person. I was like, oh, graffiti annoys me. Look at, they're taking my tax dollars and throwing it down the drain. I'm a kid, so to me, it's just like, man, this is awesome. This is like expression. This is awesome. When you would see it, you know, some of my favorite things is not even the trains, honestly. Well, the trains was awesome, but the highway bombing, the 87 Deegan, the Deegan Expressway, in the Bronx, used to have just throwies and throwies and throwies, and just like, it was just massive because it was like this huge brick wall that goes along this one section of the Deegan, and it was just wrecked, you know. And you just think, how was this happening? You know what I'm saying? I remember there was a Quick and PJ battle, and this was later on. This is like 86, I would want to say, maybe 85. You know, I don't know. Like you said, it's like 40 years ago that we're talking, right? So, and you know, and then I'd drive with my dad up to Deegan, and you'd see like, you know, PJ, and then, you know, you come back, and then it's, you know, it's quick. I think it was a QKs that he would do, or QUs or whatever it was, the quick throw he was, or just a Q. But regardless of the fact, it was just like, it was like cereal. It was day after day. You could see it happening. You could see like guys catching rep, and so, you know, the street bombing, you know, the throwies, man. I'm a big throw up fan. I'm a big graffiti fan, and I would say from every aspect of it, a tag I think can be just as ill as a piece. I think they all have the exact same weight. Honestly, in my opinion, I could get the same kind of endorphins going for each one of those things, depending on how dope it is, right? I feel like they all have those qualities that make it just mind blowing, you know? So, New York throwies for me were just some real simple. I'm an artist too, and so I like cartoon. and a simple throwaway was like a cartoon character. It was like a something that was simple that had a lot of emotion somehow. You did little lines. You didn't wasn't much to it, but somehow it was heavy. You
Yeah.
know, wasn't much to it, but somehow it popped off the wall. You know, wasn't much to it. Somehow it looked lazy or upset or happy. Like, you know, the characters that they were doing them in the E,
Mhm.
in any letter that had a hole, right? It's just super quick and fast, and they would nail it. And you know, and I was just like, man, that simplicity, and alongside a lot of complexity, right? When I say simple, it's made very minimal, but carries a lot of weight. Those type of things really sucked me into graffiti, and it was definitely like the, you know, '84 when you talk about Fordham Road, you know, is murdered by like Easy and Josh Five and all those guys and Bester, you know, it was like again, you know, there was no other place like it, right? There was, you know, objectively, I know a lot of, I know there was Philly, you know, but New York was its own monster, man.
Yeah.
And when it came to it, just its size, you know, its size. And then I'm a Bronx dude. My family was straight Bronx, even though when
Mhm.
I was younger, I did live in Brooklyn for a while. But
Okay.
I'm Bronx. So you don't realize, like, I just know the Bronx riders. There's a man
Okay.
like there's Queens riders, there's Brooklyn riders. So when
Right.
you go to those neighborhoods, now you're seeing a whole nother thing. You're like, God damn, you know.
Now, where were you from in the Bronx?
West Bronx,
Okay.
yeah, by the old Yankee Stadium.
Oh, I know exactly where that's at. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Jerome and 162 is the building that my cousins have been in my whole life. The building where I lived in as a young child. Um, Shakespeare is not too far from there. I think the building burnt down or some shit or something. Excuse me. And but yeah, the West Bronx. I was a West Bronx kid. So like the Bambaataa stuff, like that stuff didn't really get to me because that was all East Bronx, right? Um,
Okay.
we're on the side of where Herc was when he started the first party. Sedgwick isn't too far from the area where my cousins and them grew up.
Gotcha. Gotcha. That's what's up, man. Well, I know, like you said, New York is such a big city, and there's so many avenues or panels or pathways that can attract your attention, you know, and you can just get stuck, you know, viewing it, you
It's
know.
huge. I was a big fan of like the Manhattan graffiti scene, like the Lower East Side graffiti scene.
Mhm.
And I know shout out to Peely because Peely was from that area. You know, yeah, you just find pockets of it. And it was different. It's different in different pockets. You know, uh, I think you could like each area for something different. I remember in the '90s, not to jump forward, but in the '90s, I was a huge fan of Queens throw ups, man. Guys in Queens would do the illest throwies, bro. It was just
Really.
the concepts was just dumb. So yeah, going back to like the early guys, man. And you know, I never saw Star Wars, right?
Okay.
That wasn't a thing. I saw Star Wars in Chicago,
Oh, wow.
and somehow was embarrassed about it. Right? I was kind of like, whoa, that because not you know one thing is that I wasn't opposed to watching PBS as a kid. My mom
Right.
watched PBS a lot. I watched PBS. Had I had known that would have come on, I would have watched it because you know at the time we weren't probably living. I think Star Wars came out what '82,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
right? So I would have watched it. And so when I finally got to watch it in 90, 92 or whatever it was, um, it brought me back. I fell in love with it because it brought me back to those memories of those trains and those riders and everything. And I just fell in love with the movie. But it also made me realize something. I was like, holy snap. I was living Star Wars. You know, that's why this stuff is familiar to me.
Right.
And I didn't have to see the movie to be inspired by graffiti.
Oh, yeah.
I know
Yeah.
that's a thing here. Like you know, for anywhere,
Right.
when you come across a Just Ice record and you love the music and you see the graffiti on the cover, it inspires you. You want to go ahead and start doing that stuff. Well, that stuff was I grew up in it, and so it's something that's just part of the how do you put this in the cap? The veins,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So It's a thing. So for me, it's like, and for me, and I always tell people, and I've come to realize later in life that that became my identity. It was hip hop, the concept of like hip hop. You know, so wherever I went, you know, without me knowing, you know, that's the one thing that kind of kept me sane. I've been to like 10 different schools, right? There's 12 different school years, right? So I've been to a lot of schools. And so you have to maintain, and my maintaining was definitely hip hop played a huge part of that.
Now, New York was instrumental with the DJs too. So, and I understand a lot of the DJs, especially from the 70s, used to jam out in the park before they actually got to the club. So for you, how did the music side come to gravitate towards you with the DJ?
Right. It's you know, hip hop is a huge thing because it encompasses so many different arts, right? So many different fields of art, visual and music, and it just has a feel to it. So you want to do everything. So right, I used to draw, so I did graffiti. I liked the sound of the music, and once my cousin showed me what the scratch was, for whatever reason, I just picked up on that real fast. So for me, it was a love of that. Now we used to, speaking of that west side of the Bronx, they used to have a lot of park jams, but a lot of it were West Indian jams. There was reggae joints. They were sound systems, really. So same rules applied. You know what I'm saying? Like you got loud music and someone DJing it live. But you know, it was more like the local DJs that I would run into in the neighborhoods that really set off for me. Obviously, the radio DJs, super important because they were your tutorials. There was nothing else you could watch. And as a young kid, and remember, I'm young, so in those early 70 days, when you talk about park jams, I'm not allowed to go because I'm like 8. So you know that's not. What is happening though is that we're parking the car and we're walking to the crib, or we're walking to my aunt's crib or whoever's crib, and that's when you hear all this music, right? You hear all this stuff going on, and it's late at night. But New York's always alive. It's always city never sleeps. And again, to juxtapose it to other places I lived in, I would always remember that. I never took that for granted. I always like, damn, man, New York is, you can hear this thing. It's live, it's pumping. You hear some kind of jam, you know. So I was too young for a lot of those early park jams, but the radio DJs were really the ones for me. And I guess I went to the West Indian Day Parade in Brooklyn once. I think it was '86, and there was a kid. I remember he was like 14 because they introduced him, and I was 14 at the time, and he was murdering Peter Piper on Run DMC. He was just killing it. And I was just like, you know, I was like, yeah, man, I'm nice like him, but he's nice though. Kid is nice, you know. He's killing it, and so I say that, I guess, to say that, yeah, the radio DJs were the one for me. The park DJs were always there. That was our theme music. That was the background. That was the sound bed. You know.
What were some of the radio DJs? Because I know you mentioned earlier. You mentioned Red Alert, DJ Red Alert. So what were some of the ones you listened to when you was listening to the radio?
Those for me, those were the big ones. For me, it was Red Alert, Chuck Chill Out, which were on 98.7 Kiss. Chuck Chill Out was on Fridays. Red Alert was on Saturdays. Red Alert was on mostly. He came on doing both nights when he first started, and was doing that for a while. Then Chuck Chill Out came in years later. I forget, probably around that 86, 87 era. Chuck Chill Out took over Friday nights, and then I could be getting the years messed up. But so those two guys on Kiss, and then of course Marley Marl on BLS. And you would you tape both shows, you know. At points they were battling each other, which was interesting. I was a big fan of all three of those guys. Also, the Awesome Two, Teddy Ted, and Special K, and so you know, those were like the shows you could find, you know, and again, like you had to figure out what cats were doing to do the tricks. You had to like listen intently, like really listen, you know, because you can't see these things. And
right.
it's a sleight of hand. You're talking about a crossfader. You're talking about one song being mixed to another song, and just catching on what happened there. Like, what how do you go from here to here? What? Oh, he must have done it, and having a, reverse engineer the process. That was fun for me. That was fun.
Nice.
I learned transforming from Marley Marl, and I learned chases from Red Alert. And yeah. So.
That's interesting. So you learned how to transform just from listening to Marley Marl on the radio? That is crazy.
I was trying to figure it out. I heard Steady B bring the beat back, right?
Uh-huh.
And there's transforming in there, right? And I'm like, wow, what is going on? Like, what's going on right now? And I'm trying to figure it out. Bang. And then people are talking to transform, and you hear, you're like, how are they doing that? I'm befuddled. And then Marley Marl's playing, and it's funny because I have bad memory, but I remember this perfectly. Marley Marl's playing Kool Moe Dee, Go See the Doctor. Okay. Now, I knew that song because I had the tape. And I love, I'm a big fan of Kool Moe Dee, whatever. And he's cutting it up, and then he does this thing. And when he did the thing, I said, oh, that's what it is. And what he did was, if you know that song, Kool Moe Dee starts off his verse saying, I was walking down the street, but the way he says I, it's sustained. I was walking down the street, so that Marley Marl was and I said, oh, he's just and when I found out, I was on my way to Dominican Republic. Check this story out. I had a tape, because I was visiting my dad. So I'm listening. I'm like, that's what's happening. I know that's what's happening. But I'm with my dad. I don't got a mixer. So we fly down to DR. We're in the Dominican Republic. And we end up at like my uncle's house, somebody's house. I wish I could tell you exactly who it was. But what they had was a sound system. And they had a little cheap mixer, mixer. And I said, oh, I'm going to try that trick. I know this is what's happening, but I don't got that record. I don't have any record hip hop, but I've got some Spanish records here. And what do all Spanish records have? And I didn't think about this, but I put it on. But all Spanish records have horns, and horns are usually sustained. And I put that. I said, oh, man. That's it. That's how you do it. And those are the breakthroughs. Those are like, I've loved our era of hip hop because of those early moments of first time, and we don't have that so much now. You have first time technology, like technology's it's kind of taken away. I don't know. I subjectively think that it's taken away maybe some of the creativity. But we were coming. I'm glad to have seen the music come from that era where it was minimal DJing to it getting more finessed to scratching and to the point to where it's come now. Yeah. Shout out to Grand Wizard Theodore.
Yes. That's just amazing because like when you think about the early pioneering stages of hip hop, you really had to put on the thinking cap, because again, like you just said, you listened and figured it out on your own, not necessarily having someone next to you in person to show you exactly how it's done. And that's what I try to explain that to a lot of young people today. I try to tell them, I say, see, you guys could watch a video on YouTube at the click of your fingers and watch how people do stuff. Whereas we had to figure stuff out like, okay, I hear how he's doing it. Or if we seen a video, we had to try to remember as much as we can in that video, because mind you, once it went off, we may not have seen it again until sometime later. You know what I mean? So now we try to figure out, okay, now how did he do that move?
It's we didn't have the luxury, and even if like you were lucky enough to have a VHS player and record that and have a tape to record that, you had some money, and that wasn't everybody. So again, there were what I always considered many filters in hip hop back then.
Yeah.
Money was a filter. If you didn't have money, you didn't have equipment. If you wasn't robbing something or someone, you didn't have
Yes.
equipment. That was a
Yeah.
filter.
Yeah.
The difficulty of learning this equipment, because there were no tutorials, another
Yes.
filter. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Access to information were filters. And yeah, kids don't kind of get that now. That was a luxury.
Yeah.
It's kind of bugged. I wish I had some guy like me to come by to my school and be like, "Let me show you how to do this."
Yeah.
Because
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I remember, coming to the Bronx and looking to want to learn from local DJs and getting shut down because that's not what it was.
Yeah.
Cats was like, "Nah, nah," and I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
"All right, you'll see,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
you'll
Yeah.
see." I'm not going for that. But
Right.
it made me stronger. It made me figure it out.
Yeah.
Fig-
Yeah.
Figure it out. Make it
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
That's cool. Make
Yeah.
it happen. If there's no equipment, make it happen mentally. We had less distractions, so I think if there's something that you wanted to get into, um, you could find how to channel in because there were maybe fewer distractions. You didn't have this phone thing that's now
Yeah.
take
Yeah.
away that thought process and put something else in your head. So yeah,
Yeah.
I was lucky. I feel like make things being hard was a filter, and if you could stomach and just be patient enough for the hard stuff, then you were going to be something. You were going to do something in this thing. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because not everybody could hold on to at least that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Those were the days, though, man. Those were the days. Because again, like you said, that was a filter, and I just like how it stirred your creative thinking. Because not everything was going to be handed to you, and if you had a burning desire to want to get into it because you've seen or heard someone else doing it, you would, like you say, you was gonna figure it out. You're gonna put
Yeah.
1 + 1 = 2. So you're gonna start adding some building blocks, and eventually you're gonna have a wall.
You're gonna figure it out. Everybody did. I mean,
Yeah.
that's why hip hop turned out different in every every region, right? Because
Yeah.
people figured out their own way. They
Yeah.
figured out with their own tools, with their own people, with their own experiences. So it wasn't going to be New York hip hop. It would have those early kind of structural pieces, but then it would have to be something else just by default because
Yeah.
the people weren't from New York. So the energy wouldn't be the same.
Yeah.
You're not going to get a Greg Nice in other places. You're going to get like a Too Short,
Right.
because that's his energy,
Right.
and people resonated with that for whatever reason, right? Because that was their energy, and they thought that was cool.
Yeah.
For us, it was something different. For us, again, every region had its own way of its finding out how to get to hip hop and how to make it its own.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. Okay, so now, what year did you come to Chicago when you left New York? What was the first time that you came to Chicago?
I came in 90.
90. Okay, gotcha. Okay, so that makes sense. That makes sense. And when you came, like you said, the crew THC was formed after you came to Chicago.
Yeah, I came to Chicago. A quick story, not to go on a tangent. I came to Chicago in 90 to go to the Art Institute of Chicago. And one of the guys that was on my same dorm room floor, one of the guys I was hanging out with, his name was Dan Ezra Lang. And Dan Ezra Lang, he was cool. He was a cool kid. He's like a skateboarder, kid from Wisconsin. And he was going through my black book, and I had some stuff in there, but I had some graph stuff in there. So I had like regular art, regular art,
Right.
and I had graph stuff. And he saw the graph, like, what's this? And I was like, it's graph. How do you explain that to somebody? Like, if you asking me what's this,
You don't know.
I don't know, B. Graph, bro. Like, don't worry about it, because But he was like, no. What is this, man? This is dope. And
Right.
so I started explaining to him. He's like, yo, I've seen this, and I want to be a part of it. And so because of his interest,
Uh-huh.
those were the real building blocks of saying, yeah, let's start a little crew. Let's just start a graffiti crew. I was already in the graffiti crew, TME, with my man Brian out in Virginia. And so I started showing these kids how to write.
Now, what did TME stand for?
TME stood for the Midnight Eye.
Okay.
The Midnight Eye. The guy,
Okay.
shout out to Brian. That Brian Zentz is the one who started TME. He called me and said, "What do you think of this TME?" The Midnight Eye. I was like, "Cool." And that same year, I was moving to Chicago, so I was coming with that graffiti crew, but I wanted to start something else on my own. You know, why not? And there was nothing to lose. Didn't matter. You know. And I thought it'd be interesting, being that I knew graffiti so well. I was like, this seems interesting because these kids, they're not really graffiti writers, but they're all artists.
Right.
All artists, so they're gonna interpret this a little funky. If I show them the foundation, let's see where they take it. Right. And they did. They didn't disappoint, man. Those guys got into it, got into heavy, and they started developing their own styles. And that was like 90, 91. I was kicked out of the dorms in 90, and then I couldn't. That's when the hash crew kind of started. I used to write hash, and I stopped writing because I was kicked out of the dorms, and then we became the hash crew.
Now, who were some of the early members in the crew when you guys first formed the crew? You said these were regular artists.
Yeah, these are artists. The first core members was me, Dan, Ezra Lang, my man Rob 27er. I shake my head because that's a whole nother story we won't even get into. My man Keck, shout out to Keck, Keck, John Hamworth, and my man Trace, and then we had like other members, you know, that came on shortly after. But at very, very first, those were kind of the first core members. And I was DJing loft parties in Chicago around 91, really. And I met another person who was bringing records there, who knew the guy throwing the party. His name was Aaron, who used to write Love.
Trust.
OTR, Trust.
Yes.
I mean, Trust. And I'm like, I know your throwies, B. I see you in the loop because he had the LVs. Because at that time he was writing Love, right? You say Trust.
Yeah.
He was writing Love, and he had the LV. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, boy, I can do your throwy because he had a New York style to him. When I talk about that early thing I talked about when I talked about throws being simple and having weight, he had weight to his throwies. He had a shape and style, and so I already knew right away. I was like, oh, dude, this bang. And he was like, oh. And he joined the crew. So he was one of the he was the first Chicago guy to join the crew. So those first couple of guys I was talking about, those were the original core members, along with Thor. Thor came in very, very shortly after those guys. And then Aaron, Trust, OTR. And then that's when the influx of Chicago cats started coming into the crew. People saw something in the tag style, and I guess they were curious of what was going on.
Wow. Now, what was the original meaning for THC?
Well, so I used to write hash at one point, and I got kicked out of the dorms, so I didn't want to write that no more. I went back to before all that. I used to write Fred 1. I used to write F1s, phones, right? F.1s.
Okay.
And I had the ones thing going. And then when I got to Chicago, I was like, I started writing hashes. I liked the way it sounded. And then I was like, well, I can't write that anymore because the school said that they gave the pictures to the cops. I don't know, whatever. I just stopped writing it.
Okay.
But what we did was keep that concept of hash, and it was the hash cancer, the hash core, the hash complex, the hash crew, the hash whatever with a C. And we were all heavy smokers. We were all going to college. We were all heavy smokers. And so that made sense as well. You know, I think a big play of the crew was that we were like a fun time crew. Like it was a lot of like smoking and drinking was a huge part of it. And then just doing graffiti. And we were lucky to be independent, living our own, living in apartments and throughout the city. A lot of graffiti writers were young, living at home still, so we didn't have to worry about curfews or anything like that, and we were doing a lot of things. And so that we just came out of the blue like that. So people like, who are these people? You know, like what is this thing? So the earlier group was, you know, guys from Wisconsin, Kentucky, Evanston, Chicago, um, Iowa,
Wow.
you know, and me, you know,
Wow.
Michigan,
Wow.
you know.
Wow. Okay, well, what we're going to do right now, Fred, is we're going to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we'll pick up where we left off.
Sounds great.
All right. Welcome back to the RYC Live Show. I'm your host for tonight. My name is Artistic, and we have our special guest, DJ Fred Wands.
Wands.
Yeah. So yeah, this is interesting, man. So let's talk a little bit more about as you guys formed, because I recall you all during the 90s, and it's interesting how when stuff happens, you see it, although you may not understand it at the time it's happening, but you recognize it and you know it's something that is important at the time that you see it. You know what I'm saying? Just like you were saying, you when you were growing up in New York, it was always there. Graffiti was always there. So I remember seeing you all doing your thing, hearing about you all a lot, and then we had something that kicked off in Chicago in the 90s called the CTA competition. And that, kind of gathered writers from all over the city to participate in painting legal murals along CTA properties, which was interesting. And some writers wasn't down for it, but some was. And, and I want to talk about that a little bit, but I also want to know, were you all in formation literally with another crew, UFG, or was it just kind of like friendship type of thing?
Yeah, man. Great question, man. Basically, again, we weren't. Most of the crew wasn't from Chicago, so we were our own little thing. And one day I was sitting on the bus. I think I was tagging the back of a bus seat or a train seat or something. And this guy sits next to me, and it's Deep from UFG. It's Chris Silva. And he's like, "Hey, man, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, like, man." And I'm a huge fan because I'd seen some stuff that he had did at the Roscoe Racine Walls, and I was, huge fan of a lot of the Chicago guys. I was a big fan. And so that same day he comes over, and that he got put down with the crew. He got down with the crew, and we became all good friends. And we got to meet Antic, and we got to meet the whole UFG squad. And they were definitely UFG. They were definitely like their thing. But there was a camaraderie, and a lot of the guys also ended up writing THC. I think Antic was THC, or is THC, not was, is Quays and Unique and Drastic. They all were like THC. I think at the time, not necessarily Drastic, but everybody else was. And so I think by default, a lot of the guys in Hash Crew are definitely the original members were UFG by default. It was kind of like maybe a said, unsaid thing. I don't know. But I definitely put it up a lot. I consider myself definitely UFG, but UFG was special. I mean, they were like, Hash Crew on steroids. And the only reason why I say that is because they were Hash Crew in the sense that they weren't doing typical graffiti-esque things. They were doing already different stuff, and they were doing it on a high level though.
Yeah,
their painting skills were just high. We were just getting the paint. We were just like learning, figuring it all out, and they were already there, and it was on a high level. And so I think what my biggest kind of not beef, but what one big takeaway I took from Chicago graffiti when I was there was that they take this graffiti thing too serious, in the sense that it's so hip hop, like it's like always very hip hop. It's always based around one thing. And in New York, graffiti manifests itself in so many different ways. There's a hip hop aesthetic, but New York is so hip hop, you don't have to do that. And so what I was seeing out in Chicago was like a lot of big characters with the big sneakers and the big fat laces and the gazelles, and kind of saw this overall theme over and over. And I'm like, well, that doesn't say much to me, And so I think we did quirkier stuff, right? Number one, I was like, I don't need to do that, so I'm going to do quirkier stuff, by design. And then these guys that I'm with, they don't come from big shoelaces, so they can't even do it if they wanted to. They'd be fronting, so they're doing some whole nother stuff. They're doing like weird looking characters, and so that worked for us because it made us different. And I only bring that up because I think UFG was doing something very in a similar vein of just not doing the normal everyday thing.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that. And back to your point in regard to the characters with the big sneakers and the fat laces and things of that nature. I mean, I think like a lot, because I come from that era, when I started dancing, I mean, that's what we rock. We rock fat laces in our Adidas or our Pumas, denim jean jackets, and all of that stuff. So when you began to project that type of stuff on the wall, it was because that's what you was living, But then I think other artists that was coming along wanted to feel as important or connected, so they began to kind of like vibe off of that type of style, that old school type of flavor. Where if I'm learning how to do characters, I'm gonna put a Kangol on and some gazelles, even if I may not have been so much so from that era, but my homeboy is doing it, and I love his style, so I'm trying to emulate it, and that's what it became. So
I think that was, that's true in every, graffiti story, because that was a thing in New York too, because those characters did exist in New York. I guess for me, I was living it twice.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's a slower pace, not slower pace, but it came out here a little later. So just by default, I'm saying the same thing twice. I'm like, oh, I've kind of lived that. Yeah, like I know how to lace my sneakers. You know what I'm saying? We can talk about lace and sneakers.
Right.
So
right.
but so, and again, and not only that, but just saying like, well, what can we do different?
Yeah.
And and be authentic. How do you remain authentic and be different? And I mean, I've got characters that I did with big fat laces in them that I did in Chicago. I'm not saying that wasn't a thing, but I was saying that we saw different ways to do some stuff, and I think by default, the way the crew was shaped, there was always going to be room for something different.
Now, let me ask you this, because you kind of defined a little bit about UFG, and it was so on point. But how would you define THC in terms of the overall style of the members in that group during the time that you was here in Chicago?
Yeah, in the time I was here, I would say very loose, organic, and we were kind of egoless. And like when we did these walls, we just kind of all had fun, and it was like wasn't a very tense wall to be at. It was like it was always fun to paint with the guys, no matter what we did. Even if I walked away and was like, oh, that kind of wasn't right, and and to be real honest, I don't know if I've ever even said this. Sometimes because there's so many different styles, some things just can't work, because in certain things you need some kind of harmonious thing going, and I would say like there would be small pockets of area like, ooh, that doesn't work, because it's just so many different things going on.
Yeah.
But the overall concept works, and so I would describe THC as kind of pushing. We always kind of pushed. I would say definitely we were thinking crew in a sense that we looked for the void and we tried to go fit things in a place where there wasn't those things going on. So when we saw a void, we tried to fill it, and we tried to stay very attuned to that. We tried to bring humor into all this, and I think that's how I would describe us. We were ragtag. We weren't the best painters by any stretch of the imagination, but I think we just brought fun and just a different way of thinking, to the game.
That's what's up. That's what's up. I want to send a shout out to my homeboy, Mr. RYC Live. He's checking in. He says, salute DJ Fred Ones. So that's what's up. Peace. That's what's up. And then we got Jay Styles checking in. He says, peace, Fred.
That's my protege. That's my man. Watch out for Jay Styles. He's a problem. He needs to leave his whatever SoundCloud Bandcamp info. That he's a very, very problematic, talented young man. And I say problematic in the best way.
Okay, that's what's up.
Yeah, engineer, sound engineer, music producer, rapper, singer. The guy, there's nothing he really can't do. And it's my homie.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up. So yeah, man, you all went on to do some great things. I just remember the name because of some of the other members, like you said, Love, Trust. He was one of my good friends, that I knew. One of the guys that I knew. Yeah. He was one of the guys that I knew well from you all crew, and was Kep also THC?
Yeah, Kep was the first one down after Chris. Chris joined, and shortly after Chris joined, Kep joined. And hopefully, I don't have that backwards. But those were the two first guys,
Yeah.
Oh no, I think it might have been Kep for, but I always say, man, shout out to Kep, man. Kep, because that became my brother. That became like my real life. We were like, wherever you saw me, you saw Kep, and one the same. It got to the point where we was hanging out every day, like around from 93, 94. There was a lot of things that happened. I don't know if we're gonna have time to get into it, but I was raided and all types of stuff. But right around that time, me and Kep were very tight, tight, and DJed a lot of parties. You got the pictures, whatever. DJ, Kep was there.
Yeah.
Kep was. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just trying to think of some of the members that I knew personally,
Yeah,
and that
Kev
was
was down. Heckle was down.
okay.
I don't know if you remember Prove.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
Prove was Hash Crew,
that's
and
what's up.
Kato and the mad other people. But in those early days, yeah, Kep was that guy. We did a famous X-Men on Hash piece at the Roscoe Racine Walls. That's an
Okay,
that's the first like me piece in with cats doing the characters and shit. Excuse me, doing character stuff. And uh yeah, it was
nice.
92,
Okay, okay.
93,
Now,
92,
you say you left in '95. So when you left Chicago, did you go back to New York or did you go somewhere else first?
New York.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about what you got going on today, man. I know you got a lot of great things happening. So let's share some of that information with the viewers.
Oh, you know the most current thing that I got going on is the radio show. We do a live uh, radio show, internet radio show
Mhm.
called Gorilla Grooves Radio. That's GUERRILLA, Gorilla like guerrilla warfare.
Okay.
Grooves Radio. It's from 7 to 10 New York time, which would be 6 to 9 here in Chicago. And it's a live show. We play brand new boom bap hip hop, at least 30 songs a week, and we have our host Rhinoceros Funk, who interviews guests. We bring all independent guests every week, and it could be anybody, honestly. Music's obviously someone's doing music, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. And we interview guys all the time, guys and gals. I have my music programmer, Indiana Miggs, who gets all our music. So we play like straight boom bap, uh, about 35 songs average a week, brand new. We don't do any repeats. And a lot of stations do that. Internet stations. Shout out to Flip the Script Radio. Shout out to PF Cutting Show. Shout out to a lot of shows out there is doing that. I'm gonna
Okay.
get lost trying to name them all. But
Yeah.
basically, we do our show, Gorilla Grooves Radio, 7 to 10, and you can go on to GorillaGroovesRadio.com, and you can find the links to catch the shows live, and you can also find the archived shows there.
Nice.
I'm also I'm working on some podcasts, travel story podcasts, telling Black stories and telling our stories basically, and and relating it to travel. So shout out to Detour XP. Me and my lady Gina. Shout out to my lady Gina. We have a podcast called Excursions with Gina Arias, and it was just picked up by Detour, so they're running that, and that's basically us going to places and talking about community, talking about race and culture,
Okay.
and if you can check for that Excursions with Gina Arias, Arias, and you can Google that, and it comes up. We're on all the wherever you get your podcast, etc., etc.
Okay. Okay.
And after besides that, I'm an engineer. I'm a sound engineer, so I work at my studio, TME Studios. It's my studios in the Bronx. We partnered with Beloved Studios, who's there now post COVID, or since COVID. I would have that said. And but I mix records and I record cats, and I've been working with Cool Keith a lot right now. He's a fool. And I also just and mix records on my living room. So just doing the engineering thing and still living as an artist. Still since those days in Chicago, when I left, I got to New York and I was doing. I started DJing small clubs, and then I briefly worked for the City of New York Department of Health. But shortly after, I joined a group. I joined Mike Ladd actually, and Mike Ladd took me on the road, and I started traveling with Mike Ladd. And then the group I was in, Sonic Sum, we started traveling. So from like '97 on in New York, I was touring,
Oh wow.
which is a good thing, and we were able to do a lot of stuff, and go a lot. I've been to a lot of places doing music, and Sonic Sum was dope. If people don't know about it, check out Sonic Sum. We were an old kind of left field rap group, and album would be the Sanity Annex, and our second album was Films, Films, Films. And check for Mike Ladd stuff too. Mike Ladd is like a poet, kind of like a poet, rapper, experimental producer, guy, very dope. We worked on an album called, I engineered his album, Welcome to the After Future. Check for that. Very interesting record. And so I was kind of like really fell into the kind of left field hip hop scene when I got back to New York, the more experimental side of it, not the so grimy, just for grimy's sake. We were more like, more, I guess, more experimental. That's the best way to say it. Got down with Ozone Studios here in New York, and they're the ones that got us our first deal. We were managed by Amici Uzegwe, and Amici managed Company Flow at the time, and I think now he's working with Run the Jewels. Shout out to LP and the whole Co-Flow, Len, Big Just. And so yeah, those early years in New York, I was basically part of music groups, and I was traveling, and then I got my own studio, and I settled down and kind of just started working a lot of sessions, and I've been doing that since 2000. I've been working sessions, and that's 22 years later, and that's what I do. It's what I've been doing. So I've kept myself sustainable.
Okay. Now let me ask you: are you working with, or have you worked with other artists? Like, how you have the MC and the DJ. Have you been working with people over the years in that kind of form in terms of DJing or production?
Well, outside of the group Sonic Sum and Mike Ladd, but that was up until 2004, I think. Yeah, I'm Just Ice's DJ.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was waiting for the wow.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, big Just Ice. Yeah.
Word.
Yeah, I've been. He does like a lot of oldies but goodies, shows and festivals.
Didn't he just release some new material recently?
I mentioned it. Listen to that song.
Okay, gotcha.
To the song, the part. I recorded those vocals. There was another person on that song, and I guess we'll talk about this off air, or when you hear the song, let's talk about it, because I'll tell you the backstory. Shout out to Mantronix. Mantronix produced the beat. It's like a Kogan and Dumb redo, right?
Gotcha.
And yeah. That's Just Ice is my man. I've been DJing for Just since like 2007.
Wow.
We've been to Amsterdam. We've been to the UK. We've been to Helmond, Holland. All over New York City, whatever, Jersey, doing shows. Now he's not in New York anymore.
Okay.
But in theory, we're going back to Holland in September. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's going to happen, because I think what they're doing is they're swapping me out for Mantronix, which is a good idea. But it's fine. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
But if Mantronix can't go for whatever reason, then they're going to pull me back into the mix. So yeah, I DJ for Just Ice.
That's what's up, man. That's a big notable thing to not forget.
Hey man, it's in the bio, bro. It's in the bio. But I was lucky because of Just. I was lucky enough to do a record with him and Just Ice. Him and KRS-One. So I was able to produce and record a record with KRS-One and Just Ice. Their first time making music since Justisms back in the day. So yeah, it's been a blessing.
That's what's up. I was always kind of wondering how Just Ice was doing, because I don't see or hear much from him. So I know he was a big part of our 80s era. You know what I'm saying? And so it's good to know that he's still taking care of his business.
Yeah, guy's still strong, still still goes to the gym and still crazy as hell.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
So what do you say? Like, how would you explain some of how things operate today in 2022 in the music business as a DJ, or just in general in the rap world that you may know of? How would you explain that if you had to someone?
The differences, or just
Yeah, versus today versus how it was years ago.
uh, I mean, there's so many differences. It's weird because it's a whole nother world, and you know, we used, like groceries. You used
Mhm.
to have to go to the store to get your music,
Right,
right?
right,
You couldn't be at home, put the phone in your face, and just get your favorite thing that you wanted to hear. If you
right,
wanted that J. Rue record, you had to go get it. You had to get up out your ass, get on the train to go to the record store and hope that they have it still in stock,
right,
or that
right,
they got it at all. That it finally came in. You may still be waiting because you're in an area where they don't deliver that music. So it was
right.
harder in our era. You really wanted it. You really wanted it, to be a part of it. These are those filters again. We talk about filters, like it was difficult. And
Yeah.
so now, it's like, you know, there's some wonderful things. We wouldn't be able to do the show Gorilla Grooves playing 30 to 40 songs a week brand new if it wasn't for the internet and this thing where we could access music from all over the world. So it has
Yeah.
its definitely has its pluses. And but there's something to be said about our era in a sense that if you wanted to be signed, uh, like it or not, someone had to look at you and give you the thumbs up. Another filter, A&R. It wasn't just like how many likes or how many follows does this person have. Someone was kind of, so-called intelligently picking, scoping you out, and if they're good A&Rs, and they were bad A&Rs. But it was a different time. Those people were picking the talent. Now the talent is picked by your success online,
Mm.
which can be doctored, right, or not doctored, or whatever. It's just, there's less. I think that one of the biggest changes is that the record labels realize we don't have to take a risk anymore.
Hmm.
We're not going to say we're going to create this artist and we're going to make you a star. They're not doing that anymore. They're going,
Right.
you're a star. We're going to help you. We got some money to scale this stardom up
Okay.
until it's not making money anymore. Then
Right.
but they didn't have to, yeah, they didn't have to spend any money on development. They didn't have to spend any money on like those first demos. Nothing. They just picked up the
Right.
artist, you know.
Right.
And
Right.
so back then, that was a gamble.
That's an
That was a
interesting point.
gamble.
That's an interesting point, Fred, because like you said, they could just go online and see who's what, who has followers and all that, and kind of
Not
decide who they want to work with.
they do, not could. That's what they do. That's
Okay,
exactly
gotcha.
what they do. That's the point. Is that there's no they don't have to do any homework. That's the homework. Well, how
Yeah.
many views he's got? How quick? Oh,
Hmm.
okay. Well, how many followers? All right. The metrics seem to line up. That well, man, let's see. And then they start to follow you. And that's the first kind of step nowadays. That is the A&R,
Gotcha.
right? Your numbers.
Gotcha. Gotcha. That's
You
interesting.
know.
That's interesting. And that's why I think a lot of people are doing what they're doing when they get on social media. They're building up their followers and things like that. So that, because eyes are upon you once you get followers like that.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you don't even need the label.
Yeah.
They get it. They get it. They're like, oh, they get it. They're like, we got to really give them incentive
Right.
because he don't need us. She don't
Right.
need us.
Right.
They don't need us. They could do it on their own.
Yep.
Simple. It's
Hmm.
simple. It's by putting out content, and if enough people like it, you can monetize off it some way. There's a system kind of in place. They've
Yeah.
made it easier for us, right? We are the machine. Before the machine was going on tour, getting flyers made, getting a poster made if you were lucky, and
Right.
definitely having vinyl.
Right.
You weren't even an artist if there was no vinyl involved. You weren't a
Right.
thing, you know.
Right.
Like you got no vinyl. What type of artist? You just starting, So there were so many things that had to be put in place there as a financial risk that nowadays is not a thing. And then the whole technology of how we get our music made has made it so simple that anyone can do it. And so we're just in an influx of technology and a bit of oversaturatedness, in my opinion, of stuff. And but that's just where we're at. That's not gonna. It's not gonna trim down. That's where we're at. That's what it is now. How
Yeah.
how young people understand it. That's what it's going to be for a little while until it changes, and it will
Yeah.
change. But it won't change back to what we were doing. Well, I don't know what it'll change to. I'd be surprised if it changed back to what we were doing. How
Right.
we going to the store to get a record. I doubt that's going to be a thing
Yeah.
anymore.
Right.
But it is going to evolve in another way, right?
Right.
And people can be like, oh, I remember I used to have to like click a button on my phone, and now I just think it, you know, thinking my single, you know.
Right. Now, Fred, do you have any material that's released?
Yeah. Again, check for my early work with Sonic Sum, SONIC SUM, Sonic Sum. And then check for my solo record that came out in 2004 called Phobia of Doors. Phobia of Doors. That's a Fred One record. It's me. I produced the whole record, and I got Vastair, Slug of Atmosphere, Rob Sonic, Creature, M. Saeed, Hangar 18. A lot of people.
Okay.
I mean, Sinajai, Yazid, shout out to Yazilla, DJ Blowout. Anyway, that was a solo record I did in 2004. I did a record with Just Ice and KRS One called Memories Remix. You could look for KRS One, Just Ice and KRS One Memories, and they should come up on Google. And
Okay.
we did that in 2012, I want to believe.
Okay.
And then I'm working on a project. I just released a project last year with Writers Guild, and you can find that on my Bandcamp, Writers Guild, just the way it sounds and spell it. That's me, Lifelong, and Lower Velocity. And I did a couple of singles recently too. One with Reno RX, my man Reno. He's just released some stuff with Ito. I don't know if heard of Ito, ETO. But me and Reno just did some stuff. I got a single with him called Indian Style, and I got a single with my man Mike Titan called I knew I was gonna blank out on the title of that one. I knew I was gonna blank. But me and Mike Titan got a joint too, and Trapped Between the Lines. Trapped Between the Lines. And now the last thing I'm gonna say, the latest album I'm working on is with my man Carter P. Shout out to Carter P. We're working on an album called Coffee, Water, Vodka, and we're in the mixing stages. We're almost wrapping that up right now. So that's hopefully we're looking at early fall for that to drop.
Nice. Well, that's what's up, man. Well, you've been busy, man, and look, I look forward to getting with you definitely when the museum is complete and I come back to the Bronx. I'm gonna be looking for you, man.
Please come by. We'd love to have you on the show and
Yes,
have experience the Bronx with me, man. It'd be great to have you. I was there in Chicago with you, so now you get to see it on my end.
Yeah. And I would love to. My homeboy Speedy wants to come with me because he's never been to New York. So I told him, I said, let's wait till the museum is complete, and then we can take a visit out there and make some arrangements to get with some cats out there and do some things. So I would love to be able to paint, when we get out there too somewhere.
Yeah, there's spots. I had more spots, pre-COVID. I'm not in the Bronx anymore. The studio's in the Bronx, but I'm in Brooklyn. I'm in Brooklyn right now. Yeah, I'm a block away from where Biggie lived.
Oh wow!
I'm on Cambridge, between Fulton and St. James, and he was on the next block over, which was I'm on Cambridge between Fulton and Gates, and he's on St. James between Fulton and Gates, which is the next block over. Anyway,
Nice.
That being said, the Bronx is definitely changed. So you're gonna love it, man, when you guys come up.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. Like I say, I used to go to New York at least once a year back in the 90s, but but now I don't get a chance to get out there that often. But when I go, I try to make the best of it.
Yes. And it's hard to do everything, know.
Yeah, when I went in 2020 with my wife, we went to the Universal Hip Hop Museum, and then the main reason outside of coming for that was I wanted to go see the photographer Henry Chalfant had a big old graffiti exhibit up in the Bronx.
I remember that. Yeah,
man, it was so fresh, man.
Was it at the Bronx Museum?
Yes, yes,
Right.
yes,
I remember that.
yes, yeah. And so
Yeah, I would have. Okay.
yeah, so and unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to meet Henry because I know Henry know a lot of graffiti writers, since the days of him documenting in the 70s. But I was looking forward to seeing him there, and unfortunately, during that time, he was sick, so he wasn't there. But the exhibit was still open, and it was amazing to see all of the photographs that he had took over the years from 1977 all the way up to 1987. I mean, full whole car trains and some of the documentation of the park jams and stuff like that, man. It was just amazing.
It's amazing, man, what cats are doing. I mean, shout out to they sparked the whole movement, man. Keep in mind, graffiti was around before hip hop, right? Graffiti was a
Yeah,
thing cats were doing before
yeah,
hip hop was a concept, right? It's just the
right,
earliest form of it. It by default became the art form of the culture because the artists in the neighborhoods were graffiti writers. So if you needed a flyer done, it was going to be done by your neighborhood artist who was a graffiti writer. So by default, it starts to
right,
squeeze
right,
into each other. And
right.
but it's like, you talk about whole cars, you talk about like colors and scale,
Hmm.
cats are doing like very high end advertising stuff,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, very
yeah,
high end advertising stuff
yeah,
with
yeah,
no real equipment, just stuff they made
yeah,
up, man.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Changing the
yeah,
tips of the caps and all that stuff. And
yeah. And that's why I feel like when in Chicago, when we first started seeing full scale advertisements on the train and the buses, I said, where did that concept come from? Because they had never done that before we was painting the trains.
it's most influential art form last 40 years, man. The poorer the neighborhood, the more you're gonna find hip hop, the art
Yeah,
form, the music, the
yeah,
fashion, you know.
yeah,
So,
yeah, definitely. Well, hey man, it's been a great pleasure, man, and an honor to sit here and talk with you, man. I've learned some things, and
thank you.
I'll probably we'll be in touch, and if I have any more questions, I'll definitely hit you up. But what would you like to say in conclusion, man, to the viewers out there? Any upcoming advice to anybody?
Advice. Don't do what I did. No. Um, yeah, man. If you have a dream, follow it 100%. If you believe if you believe in yourself, that's half the battle. So if you don't, you're better because no one's gonna believe in you if you don't believe in yourself. And so if you have a dream, you really want to follow it, get that tunnel vision going, and just be strong. As long as as long as you have something that's worth uh, dreaming about, and you really have a passion for it, go for it. I would say go for it. And I don't want to say tunnel vision in a negative way, like don't look or think or do anything with anybody else, but I say that in a way to focus, get yourself together, and get that thing going. And it really, especially nowadays with all the resources, anything's possible. So if you try, you can make it happen, and that's for all the young folk out there.
That's what's up, man. Thank you, thank you. Hey, Fred, can we get a drop from you before we conclude, man?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Like just introducing your name, yourself, saying speaking your name and saying where you're from and that you're watching, telling them that you're watching the RYC Live show.
Got you. Yes, sir. This is your man, DJ Fred Ones from Gorilla Grooves Radio in the South Bronx. And I'm listening to Rep Your City because I'm repping mine. You got to rep yours. Chicago with my man Artistic. Peace.
All right, my brother. It's been love, and I'll be in touch with you sooner than later. And, we'll keep in touch. I know you be on the gram more than Facebook.
Yeah, I'm more of a gram guy.
Yeah. So that's what's up. But I'll tell everyone that I did this interview with you for those that didn't get a chance to tune in. All the Chicago.
Yeah, man. All my second hometown, bro. Like for real, man. Much love to everybody out there, man. That's people make that kind of concept that people think, well, Fred came in from New York, so he must have caught Mad Rec in New York. I caught Mad Rec in Chicago. I came to Chicago as a young man. I was just getting my rec started. all that wreck happened in Chicago. I just brought my style with me. So
That's
shout out
what's
to
up.
Chicago for being that place for real.
Well, I salute you, my brother.
Salute, baby.
All right, man. One love, man.
Talk to you
And
soon.
we will be back next week once again with another episode of Fresh Fridays, Rep Your City. And until then, y'all be peaceful. I'm Artistic, and we are out of here. Hey, man, it's been a pleasure, man. Thanks for being on the show, man. And I look forward to chatting up with you sometime later on in the future.
So,
all right, my brother. Peace out.